First item is number 5-15 SP, Special Properties, 78 Cranberry Road, review of the public hearing.
Yes, just that large packet you got last week was copies of everything that was submitted. You may have gotten duplicates because some took them at the public hearing, but to play it safe, we gave everybody everything. So that's all the reports that we have, the letters, etc. What you're here for now is to see if staff has any questions, if you have any questions of staff, if you need more information to make a decision, try to go in the direction of coming to that decision. You know, we've been dealing with a lot of issues on this. You've got the intervener issue that you have to deal with, the actual application itself. So what you have in your packet there is just duplicates of what you've been given before by multiple parties. You have the special permit application requirements, you have the conservation development requirements straight out of the zoning book. You've got the verified petition to intervene, which is, I believe, the pink copy in the back. And you have these in your packet, so this is something that you have to go through and make a decision on the interveners, with the key being you have to come to the decision on those, and I'll read it right from you. You have to determine if the project is reasonably likely to unreasonably pollute, and it goes on to impair or destroy the public trust in the water or other natural resources. So reasonably likely to unreasonably pollute. And we'll go back to Michael's famous example. You know, everything causes an impact. You have to make a decision whether it's an unreasonable pollution. The car example, every time you start up your car, it's a problem. But is it unreasonable?
Yeah, I mean, we all start our cars. We know poison, literally poison, comes out of the back of the car. So that's a potential adverse impact. We as a society have said that's a reasonably acceptable adverse impact. We do other things to minimize it, but so it's not no adverse impact. It's unreasonable.
Well, now, what specifically do we have to do with the interveners?
Well, this is something that you've had before. You've done it most recently, I think, for AMEC application on Crescent Street.
Yeah.
And essentially what you're doing is you're looking through, you can look through the petition, combine that with your regulations, and you have to make a determination whether the claims in that intervener are going to the point of being unreasonable.
We're showing that there would be unreasonable
Correct.
pollution.
And once you reach that, if you reach a conclusion that there would be an unreasonable adverse impact, then you have to look at alternatives. If you reach a conclusion that you don't reasonably believe there are unreasonable adverse impact, then you move on to you state so and you state why. So you have to reach a conclusion on that. If you do that, you can move on to the next step, which is the normal special permit review. You can't get to the special permit review until you clear that hurdle.
So the first thing we would have to do is make a decision about the intervener's
Correct.
position.
Right.
All right.
So if you look at the petition to intervene, the pink on the first page, essentially it says you have adverse impacts to the habitat value of the adjacent lands, claiming it's clear-cutting 2/3, and I'm reading right from this. So they're saying it has a reasonable likelihood of increasing flood runoff, erosion and sedimentation into the brook. So that's probably a good spot to start. We have the site plan up on the board for reference. As you recall, the left side of that map is the 5+ acres that are already taken off as a conservation easement. There's another smaller portion in there on this side of the river that's also conservation easement already. And then you have...
How much is that, Mike?
0.4 acres, something in that area. It's much smaller than the large 5-acre parcel that you have.
All right, does anybody have any comments then on the intervener's position?
They were increasing the amount of impervious surface,
We have,
but they included a stormwater system that does not exist at this point.
yeah, they have a mitigation plan
Right.
that comes through the whole project. But what you have in this plan is essentially the existing roadways, the underlying house, the older barns, theater itself, and the remnants of the parking lot up in the back. And then this sort of gives you the idea of where this development will be as far as the limits of lawn and that type of thing.
If I remember correctly, it wasn't it wasn't a big difference, or a big increase, it was a rather relatively.
Well, some of those old spots are being removed,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
Like the parking lot and the road that went along.
Right, but I
Oh,
think
absolutely.
it was a net gain of,
There was
yeah,
a slight net gain,
impervious.
which they,
We can get you an exact number on that by their calculation.
is the property owner allowed to comment on this? Okay, so this is
Yeah,
strictly on
that's
us.
strictly
Okay.
commission. You can ask staff. We'd be glad to parse through the material, get you what you need. I'm hesitant, as Michael asked, how many acres is that exactly? I don't want to give you an exact answer and be wrong, but it's roughly 0.4 acres here and 5 here, and I'll give you an exact number, but
When you say 0.4 acres,
we've
where?
got a little bit over here. That's a different easement from here. This one was run just to the city.
Mhm. So that you'd have 0.4 here, plus 5.
Plus that, yeah.
And then the remaining would be,
Correct. It's a 10-acre parcel, so the rest of the development occurs over in this area.
so what you're saying is that from here to here, how many acres would that be?
Well, if we take 5.5 from 10, it gives you like 4.5.
4.5, where
Yeah. So this is essentially existing conditions.
We have to make a determination on the intervener prior to making a determination as to the special permit.
Which is what, when do we do this?
You have
Well, that's the
65
first- that's the
days from
first
the
thing.
hearing to
Okay,
decide.
okay, so we
So
don't
we have
really
till
Tonight, you would
October.
give us any conclusion you have or request
Some
for
direction.
information that can tell you
boy.
what information you want to help you make that decision.
And if we're making the decision about the intervener, can we consider the decision that the water department came to
All
about
information
that
that was
this was
submitted to you,
acceptable?
that
Oh, conservation.
Conservation
Development,
yeah.
yeah.
You received a report back from your
Yes.
Conservation Commission.
Right.
That approved the project with various changes. They changed the
Right.
size of the driveway here,
Yeah.
and they requested more bushes and a whole host of things. There was 2 pages of petitions.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So surely, that's
So
in
that's
your
something we
record.
can consider when we make a decision
Absolutely.
about this.
you should use that though in light of looking independently at the
Yeah.
statements that were made.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I mean, with this issue of increasing stormwater runoff, increasing the temperature of Stony Brook, et cetera, would that have been something that the Conservation Commission would have dealt with directly in making their decision?
We can find out if that claim was made to them. We didn't attend their hearing,
Okay.
but we can check on that.
But the odds are good. It
Yeah.
probably was a major part of it.
And then you would also have to look at what credible evidence you have to, it
Yes.
can't just be a statement that you have to then
Right.
sort out. Someone has to provide you with credible evidence that you don't feel was contradicted by another expert
Right.
to make the decision that, yes, that's true.
You had experts on both sides.
Right.
The applicants had their environmentalists, the public had theirs. Dr. Danzer, you're taking all of that into consideration, their entire presentation, their submittals. So everything that you have in your possession and what you heard at the hearing is what you have to make the decision on.
all right, with respect to the density on B, it's my understanding that they did not use any as previously, oh no, they used the 0.5 acre, the
Correct.
one to the city, but not the,
Not the state one, which was the large 5-acre piece. And as you recall, in the beginning of this, there was an opinion from our corporation council as far as the density calculations, which said they could not use that larger piece because it did not have the same language as the smaller piece. The smaller piece said you could utilize that.
Right, so they used what they were legally
Correct, they didn't use the big piece.
entitled to use. Okay.
Could you run through that arithmetic quickly for?
Sure. Basically, what you're doing is, because of this 10-acre parcels, they can't utilize 5 acres of this towards the unit calculations because Corporation Council had made the determination that this was already taken out for those unit density. So then you're left with the remainder of the parcel.
Which is 10 acres.
We have 10 acres total. So what you're doing is the calculation you're gonna have to deduct for whatever wetlands you have, a reduction factor of 0.85, that accounts for roads and that type of thing. And that gives you basically the number of units that you can put in here, and 15 is that number.
According to our
Correct.
conservation. This
Right,
zone,
conservation.
That
Yeah.
arithmetic is correct, it's 15.
Correct. We actually have there, and you have it, that was confirmed by their surveyor, that those numbers were correct. I mean, that's what we're basing everything on.
And just to go a little further with that arithmetic that Roger spoke of, would be what?
The bottom line is you end up with 15 units, which is what they have.
That's the maximum that's allowed?
Correct.
Given the,
Yeah.
Okay.
Originally, you recall, they had 21 units, but that
Right.
was calculating
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
That application went away, so we're not dealing with that whole
Right.
issue anymore.
Yeah. Any
No.
other questions?
Just to be certain, with respect to that 78 Cranberry, the decision is made based on just the people that are part of that committee.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, the recommendation to the commission is made by the committee. That's correct.
And that's made up just so that the new people have an understanding. It's particular, Rod, because
For
it wasn't
tonight,
here.
it's just the two of us.
Okay.
Because Adam would be on it,
Recused.
but he's recused himself.
Okay.
Yeah, Rod's been through hours of this already. So
But
he's-
the reason we're meeting is if they're not on the committee, someone not on the committee can at least tell the committee their concerns so that we're not doing this on the floor of the commission.
Yeah,
Right.
right. So does anybody have any, well, do you want questions answered before we take a vote on this? Is there anything still outstanding?
Well,
that
the other
you
issue
want
is
to
the
know?
setbacks, the 100-yard setbacks and going further from that.
Well, there was a request that additional setbacks be placed
That
on
they're
the,
honoring the setbacks.
on the application. Your requirements, if you look on the special permit, are 40 feet from any wetland.
And is that met by them, by the
They actually
proposed?
exceed it, don't they?
They exceed it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, they meet and
They
exceed.
meet and exceed
Yeah,
it.
one of the letters was in that they'd like this setback to be pushed back over here, specifically to get away from that pond and push these units back.
And there was some confusion as to the extent of the distance, but it was the edge of the pond to the easement? There was
Well,
some
there's
confusion?
an awful lot of lines on there.
Yeah.
You've got an upland review area line, which comes up to here,
Which is, what, 50?
which is conservation.
Yeah.
So that's 100. You've got your 40-foot line, which comes in through here. And you can see that that's this line here. So that's your regulation, so it pushes them back to here.
Okay.
But
So
in
in
that,
this particular-
That's the extent of the setback.
That's your zoning, right?
So they could have gone through that line, is what you're saying?
They could.
But-
Now, again, you have competing interests here. You
Right.
have conservation. If they got closer to that, Well, then you're gonna have to deal with conservation to see how that works with them. Clearly, I think they've pushed it back, trying to
Right.
reach some sort of an accord.
Alright.
So are there things people want to get information about before we?
So this pink sheet doesn't really address the utility right of way. Is that right?
On here, I don't believe it does.
No.
It's not part of the interveners.
No.
The
Well, so that was
interveners is
part of his
mostly,
presentation.
it's mostly environmental. Clearly, that was a nature issue.
Mm-hmm.
It's just,
It's not part of this.
But
not
it's
part
not,
of this, though.
it's not in the
Okay.
written.
It's not in this.
Okay.
so that is clearly something you're going to have to address. But if you take this, preserve wetlands, conserve land, development will best maintain its appearance, character. You have to see if what they have here meets that requirement.
So then utilities is a separate issue then?
Well, you can take everything you have to take everything as a whole,
Yeah.
but to get to that whole picture, you're looking at individual pieces. I think you can take, if you concentrate on this one area, you still have to look at the whole.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's
Right.
all part and parcel of this application.
But this is something that we need to take care of first, is what I understand you, right?
Yeah, you have to be cognizant of it and work through that to see if indeed you feel that there's a non-reasonable impact here. Because if they're not, and you don't have to come up with alternative plans or that type of thing, well, then you're into the site plan, the special permit itself.
Right.
Okay. So would we make that decision tonight and then put all?
Well, it's up to you. If you have enough
For the-
information and you feel comfortable that you've had time to look at the record that you were given, you have enough information in front of you, surely you can start that process tonight.
Yeah. Well, is everybody comfortable with that, or what, Mike? you
I
have
don't
a
think there's
question?
anything new that we haven't heard or addressed.
No.
From both sides. I mean, we've been through
And
quite a lot of public comment and
Yes.
rebuttal. So, I mean, we've heard all of it.
Yeah, there's no new information here. All of this information is what you've heard, what you've been given.
And there are, I don't think there's any outstanding questions that I have with regard to the particulars of it.
No.
I don't see anything new with regard to
Mm-mm.
what the intervener has
So-
presented here.
Then the question is, do you feel like this is reasonably likely to unreasonably pollute?
Unreasonably,
Reasonably likely
I
to
don't,
unreasonably.
as I said, with regard to this
Yeah.
particular, the comments by the intervener, I don't see anything new here. I believe that at this time, if you so see it, we can move forward. What's your feeling now?
Okay. I would agree with you. I mean,
Okay.
given the decision of the Conservation Commission and the fact that we haven't had anything new added to the information we already received, I think we
You
can
may want to look at something as,
go ahead.
you could just talk about quickly, the amount of trees or the area that they're actually building these houses in. Does that cause you to go back to this and say, oh boy, that's unreasonable?
No, but it doesn't. I mean, we've heard a lot, we've seen a lot, and from my perspective, the property owner has gone to great lengths to try and accommodate all concerned, and they've stated their case for me very clearly. So I don't see anything from my own perspective that hangs me up on any particular point here.
And after such an extensive public hearing, I certainly feel that all minds are clear with regard to what they had to say, what everyone had to say. And this information, I don't believe should be something that would stop us from moving forward at this time.
One of the other issues, and I'm just throwing these out, is if we can touch on them, because I think it's important that we try to hit as many of these issues as you can. There was a concern about the conservation area itself, that it was gerrymandered and didn't serve its purpose. There is a plan over here which I'll grab, which I believe shows the conservation area a little bit better. So don't break too much.
Yeah.
Here will be all right.
Right.
So this was a takeout of what was provided to you. And this is actually answers some of the questions that Michael had as far as the conservation easement was 0.445 acres over here.
Right.
This is the new conservation area that goes along with this conservation development. So all of that will be new. So you've got wetlands down here, you've got wetlands down here, a little bit out of it, and you've got a corridor in here. But the question was, do you see that as something that's reasonable and large enough to serve its purpose?
It doesn't seem out of line from the other ones that we've seen. That's what I keep going back to.
I would agree with that.
The Silver
What I
Mine,
see, yeah.
right, it's the one that I think of,
Yeah.
it's the one that I looked at as a conservation commission, and we looked at how it was sort of the edge of the property, and when we had that conversation, and it seemed like it worked for that. And this is a lot more conserved area around the development.
The houses.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot
Yes.
deeper.
So if you look at the entire parcel that you have here, I mean, you've got quite a bit of land that's actually conserved.
Right.
This is
Yes.
the area
Right.
that you don't have.
Right.
And not only that, but with regard to the development itself, it, in my opinion, has been well planned to conserve the land throughout.
I agree.
So at the end of the day, you'll have 10.4 acres that are under conservation.
Mhm.
So that's all the three different shades of green. These two have been given already. These will be given if this project goes through. So according to their calculations, somewhere in the area of 67% of the parcel is conservation.
Conservation, yes.
And the nice thing is that a good portion of that is gonna be remediated, the
The asphalt,
Wetlands.
old asphalt
Mhm.
stuff as well.
Yeah,
It's gonna get
it's
filled
central.
out.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think that,
And a part of that is, there's still access for public to be a part of this development, if they so desire.
True.
whatever they do here doesn't change
Yeah,
what rights they have down
Yeah,
there.
Correct.
right.
Correct.
okay. And it does fit within all the zoning requirements then?
It does.
Your zoning requirements, if you,
Well, see,
you know, you look at the special permit, you look at the conservation development, essentially, it's distance between units, it's different distance between the wetlands, it's that unit calculation that the surveyor gave us the calculations on. It's all of the other things that you're looking at. You're looking at the drainage.
How about a concern for the neighbors flooding? Anything changed since that, or?
Well, once the hearing's over, no.
Yeah.
You're looking at what was presented by the applicant's team, which essentially is they're creating underground storage for everything that happens over here, saying that they're dealing with a 100-year flood. So we're not creating additional runoff that's caused from this development.
The two-thirds clear cutting, I'm trying to figure out what.
How that adds up?
Yeah.
Yeah, thought about that.
Because if you've got 65% is
Conservation.
conservation.
It doesn't, the numbers don't, and
Well, it
I
seems
thought
like
about
a
that.
And that's really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it seems like a 1/3, and that was
Yeah.
kind of my sentiment when I read that.
Right,
you have to take out already disturbed areas.
Right.
So even within.
So this section, which is,
Yeah.
has the
Utilities.
utilities into it,
You're not clear cutting that,
Yeah,
you're
no,
going back
exactly.
the other direction
that's right.
with
They're
that.
planting in there.
All right.
And with the kind of landscaping, it seems like that would certainly be helpful for that entire area and development itself.
So what does the committee want to do?
Okay,
So you can make a recommendation for, is it a
I mean,
recommendation for a
do you
finding?
see a need for alternatives to this? That's really what it gets down to.
Well, it's first, if they don't make, if they make a finding it doesn't, then you don't have to go to that. And I'm taking notes on what you're saying, so I'm drafting a resolution, if that's what the finding is.
Procedural question, do we, is it, not we, because I'm on the committee, but does the committee have to make a motion to send it for a finding?
Well, I think you want to get a sense of the committee that this is where
Right.
we want to go. Clearly, you're not going to, I think you probably want a little bit more concrete drafts for you to look at.
Yeah.
Prior to any sort of vote you may be taking.
No, but I'm talking about the
To move forward.
intervenor.
To respond to this.
yeah, what do we,
Yeah, that's the first thing you have to do is
Right.
the
And
committee.
that's for the committee,
Correct.
for a motion for a finding.
Right. Yep.
for what, a motion for what?
A finding.
So we have to draft
So
something.
we would make a
is what he's
finding at the
saying.
at the public meeting?
No, if you
No,
reach
you're saying
that
that-
conclusion, we're taking notes
I
of
think-
everything you're
are we
saying,
ready
and
to
we'll
reach
put
a
it in a draft
conclusion?
form for your review.
Is that where we are?
Yes.
I think we
think
are.
we
I mean,
are.
from
I believe we
everything
are.
I've heard, we're
Yes.
ready
Yes.
to
Is
move
it,
forward.
okay, I guess the question is, does anybody else have anything else that they want to discuss regarding the intervener's petition? Okay.
It seemed like, Mike, you were about to add something else to that.
Maybe it was a follow-up, but
No, he
Okay.
was-
Yeah,
he
that's
was done.
fine, that's fine.
He was done.
if we don't have to go there,
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine, okay.
All right, so if no one has anything else to add, then,
I mean, I think you've looked at the conservation area,
Yeah.
you've seen
Yeah.
and said that that looks large enough for what
Right.
it's looking to
Right.
accomplish as far as our regulations
Mhm.
go.
And I think, the fact that it's in keeping with what we've done in the past with other
Mhm.
conservation easements, is important.
And based on what I see, I
Yeah.
believe that it is.
Okay,
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
so let's take the next step.
okay. So can we agree that we can move on then? That we all agree that there's nothing here to stop the development?
It's not
Well,
reasonably
in that
likely to
petition, but-
unreasonably.
Correct.
Correct,
It's not
yes.
reasonably
So
likely
You're
to
making a motion to
unreasonably.
make a finding?
Yes. That there won't be an unreasonable.
So we need to make
amount
that in the form of a
pollution.
motion?
The committee does.
The committee
Committee
does?
What we
Yes.
do, and then
Go
what,
for it.
then will it be voted on at the next meeting?
No, it's
or-
voted on by the committee.
Right.
And then
The
you,
two.
The commission would have to-
Oh
You-
my
well, so
gosh.
are
Well,
you-
because they're making a recommendation.
So
you're
we're making the recommendation?
You're making a motion to make a recommendation to the commission. I stand corrected.
Okay, let's make a motion to make a recommendation to the commission, then we continue on, that there's nothing in this petition to intervene to stop the development. And we should go ahead and
All right.
consider
next
the
step.
next
Okay.
step. You agree?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so then, if we're looking at the special permit.
And as it's a usual procedure, you tell us what direction you're going, what your concerns are, we can draft any resolution you'd like, whatever special conditions you may want in there as far as any safeguards, additional safeguards you might need, that type of thing.
I'm trying to think back to the primary concerns of the public were the setbacks and the location of the easement, which it's kind of difficult to make a condition to
Because
safeguard
based,
that.
that's
Well,
right.
just to ensure that they're respected, all of those those boundaries are respected and adhered to during construction and,
Well, they've added the split
completion.
rail fence, correct, on
Right.
the pond
Mhm.
side.
Yeah. Conservation actually put some additional conditions in there, and we'll review those for you and try to
Yeah.
firm that up, because clearly you want to delineate where that line is.
Right.
We've had everything from 4x4 posts with a marker conservation area to stone walls to fences to that type of thing.
So there's no delineation on that
Well,
portion?
they have some wetlands, I don't know what, I'll get that information
wasn't the
for you.
primary area the pond that they were
Well,
concerned about?
there was a lot of concern raised about the
That's where
pond,
it was.
everything from
Yeah.
noise,
Mhm.
lighting,
Mhm.
proximity of those units towards towards that already conserved area.
Does it make sense to extend the split rail fence all the way around to the other side, though, if we're trying to delineate the easement area? So it's easement on this side, but there's also conservation
all
on
the way
that
around
side.
it.
Yeah.
You'd have to put an awful lot of fence up. I
It's
don't think it
split
would be
fence.
attractive. I
Alright.
don't know. if
Hold
it
that thought
would-
for a
I
second.
think it might
Let's not-
not work with the aesthetic that's happening in there,
Yeah.
which is to be as minimalistic as possible.
And not only that, but
And
still
less
have
invasive,
it
right.
preserved as a,
Right.
I mean, I get it
Conservatory.
behind the pond so that, there isn't a lot of encroachment, but everywhere else, I think it should be just left alone.
You end up with a grass area versus the natural area
Correct.
that starts.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
and again, I believe a lot of time has been spent by
Mhm.
the developers to really honing this particular development so that it's pleasing and so that it makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sorry. So this gives you a little bit better
Mhm.
Idea that
sense
this would be
of what you have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And the same thing with here.
Yeah, so you have a limit of lawn, and then you have another way.
Mhm.
Essentially, conservation calls it a buffer area.
Mhm.
Okay.
And how long is that buffer area again?
Well, this shows
The minimum
65
is
feet from
55.
here.
That's,
to here.
and that's the.
But the
Wait, how
length,
much?
he's talking about the length though,
65
right?
feet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're talking about the length along the pond?
No, from the house
Or
down
from
the
the house?
pond.
Yeah.
Well, it's larger than 65 feet. This is 65 feet from this point to the edge of the water.
But that was a big concern, the residents had about 100 feet.
But that's not the code, the code is 40.
I understand
So
that.
they're
And
exceeding.
Not only that, but they really exceed that if you add this
Right.
55 plus the actual
Plus the lawn
um,
that's there.
location
Yeah.
of the units, of the detached units themselves.
Right.
So, if you were to add in, it looks,
So in that particular case, you've got close to 80 feet.
yeah, so
It's a lot.
that's.
It's almost double
Yeah.
what's required.
Mhm.
But you've got different issues. That's from the edge of the pond. You've got wetlands that come over here, so you're closer to the wetlands.
Mhm.
Our requirement is 40 feet, which would, on the other plan, it shows a little bit better, but that comes up to here, 40
Mhm.
foot. So they meet your requirement,
Mm-hmm.
but clearly they wanted some additional.
And not only that, they not only meet our requirements, but they exceed
Mhm.
our requirements.
And the issue is that you really can't push it back without redoing the entire plan.
Mhm.
You have wetlands here too,
Yeah,
so you're
I mean, there's,
hemmed in
It
between the
has,
two.
I think they've
Yeah.
done the best they can, given what they
Yeah,
own
that's
and
right.
how they've
And how
designed
it has
Yeah,
been
I
designed.
agree. I
And
agree, Nate.
redesigned,
Exactly.
based on
Mhm.
the original number of units.
Yep.
trying to think back to the other,
Concerns?
yeah. There was some concern with light and noise, but the lighting, where's the closest lighting to neighboring property? It's gonna be down here, right? And that's all
Probably
full
over
cut
Are
off.
there any
Right.
kind of street lights or low
You got
lying lights or
a
anything?
post light that's
Post light?
9 or 10 feet,
Mhm.
so they're not tall street
Mhm.
lights.
Right, and then you've got vegetation on that side that's gotta be,
Yeah,
well, those are all shade trees, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, some of it's safety, I mean, you
Well,
have to have some light.
yeah.
They need light.
Mhm.
But they're all, the proposal was for all full cutoff, correct?
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's not me.
Oh, it's actually,
That's new.
Okay,
All right,
so,
does anybody have any other thoughts?
and you
or
might as well
concerns?
address the
Or the
Yeah.
utility.
meadow.
Oh,
I felt that was pretty well addressed by the fact that they said it was
What were we gonna
only
say,
the
Mike?
wire, that according to what they were talking about, the wire was the thing, there was no
Right.
set in stone swath that had to be
Yeah, my take from, you know, the applicant's side, there's an easement that clearly allows that from the 30s.
Yeah.
Strange easement in the sense that it didn't dictate it's a 20-foot wide or
That's
25-foot
right.
wide
No,
It was
easement.
only the wire.
Having
that-
said
that
that, you know, the interveners and some of the neighbors were making the case, well, by de facto, you know, this is cleared this wide, so that's really what it should be. And I think they were making the case that there is no limit on that easement.
Yeah, CLMP
Which to
said,
me means that they could come in, you know, coming across here and.
but they never have. They've never been in there for maintenance, which I found remarkable, that
Well, at
it's
some point,
not
clearly
something
they
they
yeah,
go.
but at some point with
But
it,
they might have, but even still, I mean, it's so infrequent that
because
I
it's
don't see it as an issue.
it's a wire, there's not
Right.
there's not a
Way
station
up
there, it's,
above.
Yeah.
you're talking about repairs, is basically,
Right.
if
Yeah.
something gets knocked
Yeah.
down. And they've included ingress and egress for it,
Mhm.
for CLMP, or
Yeah.
Eversource.
Eversource.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know, they
I'm gonna
changed
keep
the
calling
name,
it
but it's the
CLMP.
same. Uh-huh.
So the area that we have outside of the wetland,
Yeah.
the wetland alone for the moment,
Mhm.
the area here is proposed as a meadow.
Mhm.
And that's being remediated as well.
Well, in
Yes.
the sense that
Yeah.
this was the parking lot. Yeah, the
Right.
parking lot goes away.
Yeah.
This turns into a meadow by their application.
Right.
They physically create it.
Okay.
And I guess the position was that a conservation easement and a utility easement can coexist. And
Correct. That's the
consequently,
applicant's-
that is legitimate, that area, whatever it is
That seems to be the
legitimate,
DEP's take on
Right.
it as well.
Yeah.
Right.
so.
So it's really, this is the case where you're taking those two
Right.
parties and their testimony and which one rings true to you.
Mhm.
And the commission in the past has basically concluded that they can coexist in these
You've got large
these
underground
things
pipes
and so
that are
forth.
under easements.
And so that has been the position in the past of the commission.
Yeah. Correct.
All right.
Okay,
So where do we go from here?
so.
Well, I
what's
think
next?
the committee then makes a recommendation for moving it back to the full commission for the next week, I would guess.
This has to be done at
For next
the
week,
public
or
hearing,
we have
or can it be
65
done
October.
here?
We have.
We have
yeah,
65
have
days.
it
Yeah,
all.
65 days
If you wanted to
vote.
think
What-
about it a little bit more, discuss it.
Yeah.
What you can do
Or
is
take
if
more time to read the.
if you want us to draft up a
submission.
draft resolution, we can get that
That's
to
a good
you.
idea.
Then you can look at it over the next couple of weeks, gather your thoughts
Yeah.
based on that.
Uh-huh.
Anything additional, anything you want to take out, add, it has to be your decision, your words, your take on this.
And then maybe any
Committee
additional
meeting.
conditions we
Yeah.
occur to us.
Right. But we should review the conditions that are imposed by the Conservation Commission, just to see if that's enough.
Well, we'll
Or
do
if
that,
we need any more,
but
yeah.
clearly, it's always, our position is, you do your application independently of them, you realize
sure,
what they're
yeah.
doing, it's a belt and suspenders, if they're looking for something over here.
Right, yeah.
Right.
You don't wanna do anything that contradicts that, but
Right.
if you see something that can, that you feel strongly about,
Mhm.
surely impose it.
Okay. All right, so you okay
Okay.
with that?
Does
If
that
they come
know
up with a
where we're
draft
going?
resolution?
Taking lots of notes, we'll give you a draft.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
yeah,
Right.
right, so we'll take a
Good.
draft, we'll take a look at the draft next month, and
Okay,
then we
sure.
can figure out what to
And
do.
then we make
Based
vote.
on
And
Okay.
so you have 5 days from,
End of the public
End of the
hearing, so
public
it gets you
hearing.
through your October regular meeting.
through the zoning. not-
Correct.
All right,
So
okay.
to get you to the committee.